welcome to Boring Money, Rich Life. I'm your host, Joy Hicks, and today we're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill because it has passed. And so I have been waiting to talk about it because I just wanted to kind of see like what is actually going to be rolled out. So we're going to go through like what it actually is, and then I'll kind of share like my thoughts on it as well. So pretty much it's a spending bill, like a tax bill. And then it's saying that this bill, like what's kind of written in this bill, is going to raise the debt ceiling by 5 trillion. Now, when it was first proposed, it was saying that it was only going to increase by 4 trillion, which is still a lot, but apparently with everything that's been kind of like divvied up, the debt ceiling is expected to increase by 5 trillion. What's kind of like in the bill, they talked about having like different tax breaks. Now, of course, the reasons why, the Republicans and the Democrats were kind of like fighting is because the tax breaks do seem like they are more geared towards like wealthier families. So it was saying that the tax breaks will kind of provide about $12,000 a year for more like wealthier or affluent households. And then it's saying that for poorer households, they'll end up paying actually more in taxes. And it's saying they could pay up to $600 more due to different like cuts. So, due to things like cuts in Medicaid and like food aid programs, it's saying that the wealthy will see a lot more like tax breaks and then the poor are going to see a lot more costs. So that was one big thing. And then it was saying that there is going to be a temporary kind of like tax break for tips and overtime. And then also for auto loans as well. So for people who are in like the service industry, people who are probably in more like blue collar jobs who get to work overtime, and then also, if you do have a car loan, it was saying that for a few years, you will see a deduction on those things. You're still going to have to pay like state and federal taxes, but I guess you are going to get like a tax break. But it did say that was temporary. So we'll kind of see in the next few years if that's something that becomes permanent. And then it was saying that older adults, they may see a tax deduction up to $6,000 if they make less than $75,000 a year. Now, this one is kind of interesting, and I do want to see over the next few years how this plays out because it does seem like it's geared towards more lower income households. Like, okay, yeah, if someone is older and they're making less than 75,000 a year, we should give them a tax break. And that sounds great. But I have shared with you guys before that we are in the middle of the great wealth transfer. Like, this is the beginning of the great wealth transfer where a lot of baby boomers, they have really accumulated a lot of wealth. And that is through like jewelry and stocks and businesses and real estate and all these different things. And so as they're getting older and retiring, and some are even passing on, they're transferring a lot of their wealth to their descendants or giving away their wealth or whatever have you, or even selling it, right? Now, I've been reading a lot about millionaires, and it talks about how millionaires, before they die, they know how to kind of lower their tax burden and they know how to kind of distribute their wealth so that they don't have to pay a lot in older age. So I'm wondering if that's not just for like lower household, like lower income households, but if it's actually kind of like a loophole for millionaires who are aging out to kind of get rid of some of their tax burden. So that's definitely something that I would say to be on the lookout for. But also, I mean, the goal here is that we get rich ourselves. So these are kind of the things that we need to learn about. Like, okay, when you make all this money and you have all these investments, how do you give it to your family in a way that's not going to burden them or yourself? So definitely that's something that I'm going to look into and kind of watch just to see who it really impacts. And then another thing that was introduced into this big, beautiful bill is a change in the child tax credit. So currently it's at 2000, and I believe when I was reading online it was saying that it did increase because prior it was only $1,000, And then currently it is 2,000, and now it's going to be 2,200. Not a huge increase there, but there is a change with that. And then businesses will also get tax breaks as well. So we know that the Trump administration is very business friendly. I've been telling you guys that Trump himself, he's getting into cryptocurrency, and he's definitely kind of shown like his favor towards crypto. And then he's always been an entrepreneur. So it definitely makes sense that businesses will definitely see a benefit. So it was saying that they'll be able to write off 100% of the cost of equipment and then also research as well. And that's why I think it has a lot to do with like crypto and even like space. So there's definitely a wave right now where a lot of businesses are learning about the capabilities in space, space travel, even like space vacations. So I feel like those might be two areas where you definitely see like an influx of businesses starting to grow. And that could definitely be something that you look into as well. Also, like AI, of course. So we know that it takes a big like data center to kind of house the information for artificial technology. So it would make sense that these different businesses are getting different credits or like tax breaks for their equipment and then also their research as well. So definitely possibly some opportunity in that space. And then also in the bill, it was saying that 350 billion is going to be allocated to border and national security. Trump has talked about like building his wall and things like that. And so it's estimated that about 45 billion is going to go to the construction of a border wall. There's also going to be 100,000 like migrant detention center beds added. So that's definitely something. Also, clean energy took a hit as well. So currently, there was like a tax credit if you did have an electric vehicle. Then, if it was like brand new, you would get $7,500 as a credit, and then if it was used, you would get 4,000 as a credit. So, actually, that was supposed to end in 2032, but it's actually going to end now much sooner, and it's supposed to end September 30th. So, clean energy kind of took a big hit. So, think about like solar and things like that. Those types of things are taking a hit. Now, Medicaid and SNAP, or just like food aid in general, have definitely taken a big hit when it comes to the big, beautiful bill, right? So, Medicaid and SNAP, these are government funded programs. So, Medicaid is for health insurance, and then SNAP is for food. So, think of like food stamps and things like that. Now, with this new bill, it's saying that Medicaid is going to lead to a cut that will kind of cause almost 12 million Americans to lose their health insurance. And then there's also a new requirement that people eligible for these programs are going to have to work at least 80 hours a month. And that sounds great, right? But my background is in social work, so I have definitely worked with people with disabilities, and I've also worked with like adult protective services. And so a lot of the clients that I was working with, they were definitely on both of these programs. And a lot of them also received like Social Security. Now, mind you, the Social Security they were receiving was probably like $800 a month. If they had a family, maybe like $1,200 a month, right? But you're not balling out of control on $1,200 a month. So a lot of them needed to have health insurance from the government, and a lot of them needed food stamps from the government because a lot of them were older, so they physically couldn't work. A lot of them had disabilities and things like that. And even myself, so I have shared with you guys that I'm a single mom, right? And when I first was divorced, my baby was a toddler. She was like one when I got my divorce. And so at that time, I was in college. Like, I was a brand new mom. I was in school. I was trying to, figure out how I was going to take care of my child. And so at the time, I'm going to school full time for my bachelor's. So, like, I did not have a lot of free time to work because with a social work degree, you have to do an internship. So, I was being a mom, I was going to school, and then in the summer I had to do an internship. So I personally had to use programs like Medicaid and SNAP. And then for my master's, you have an internship while you're in school. And so it was just a lot going on, right? And so I do see kind of like the reason why they would add like a work requirement behind these things, but it's not always like crystal clear why people aren't working. And especially now when people are getting laid off in just record numbers, like Microsoft just announced that they're doing another layoff of 9,000 people. So when you hear that there's like hundreds of thousands of jobs available, it's not really as it seems, right? And so for me personally, when I was on these programs, like as soon as I got a job, Snap, it stopped immediately. Like as soon as you pretty much apply for a job, as soon as they think that you signed your name for a job, they cut it off, right? So like, yes, I was working, but mind you, I had just recently graduated. I didn't have my master's yet. And so I'm not working at like a great job at this time. I actually couldn't even get a job in my field because I didn't have a master's yet. So I was selling insurance for a while. Mind you, I'm making like 40,000 a year, okay, for myself and a child. That was not a lot. And so it was definitely like, yeah, I could have still used SNAP benefits, but SNAP is already very strict. When they say that people are going to work 80 hours a month, that's probably going to lower the amount that they get currently. So it seems very like contradictory right there. Like there's going to be something like a catch 22, because again, as soon as Snap knows you're working, they usually cut your benefits either in half or stop them altogether. So that's probably a way to get people off of Snap anyway. But then, like once I was like going for my master's, once I finally was like getting employed and things like that, I still had Medicaid for like a couple years because health insurance is so expensive. Like, especially as a single parent, health insurance is so expensive because kids always have to go to the doctor. Like, I don't know what it is, but kids always end up in the doctor. So, of course, they have their yearly physical. You have to make sure your child is developing, so you have to take them. And then, especially for a baby, they're going so often, maybe like once a month, once every 2 months. Hopefully, there's no medical issues where they have to go even more than that. But for like a toddler, they have to go yearly. Then they get sick, so then you have to take them for that. Then you have to make sure that they have their shots. And then, it's just all these different things. If you're trying to get them into different programs, you have to get a physical done. So that's an extra appointment. Like health insurance is so expensive. And so I'm really grateful that like I have my job now to where, I can afford health insurance and like all these things, right? But like thinking about back then, like when I was a brand new mom and I was in school and I couldn't get a job in my field, I definitely used those programs because it's like, what am I going to do? Not take my child to the doctor, not feed her? What are we going to do? So it's definitely, I don't know, I would say disheartening to kind of see these programs being cut because they're being cut in such a significant way to fund these other programs like the wall and all these things, right? And so it just sucks because America is like a melting pot anyway. The only people who are actually from America are Native Americans. And so to kind of have these super strict immigration laws, and then our first lady is not American, it's just like, it makes no sense to me why it has to be such a significant cut. But I would definitely say, like, for the people who are like, no, this is great. It's good to see that these people are going to be working and all these different things, right? Mind you, just because their Medicaid gets cut does not mean that they're going to work, and it does not mean that they're going to pay their medical bills. So, what's probably going to happen is these people are still going to go to the doctor. They're still going to go to the hospital, especially the ER. And if the hospital doesn't get recouped for these expenses, we're probably going to see it in an increase in our premium. So if you do pay for your own health insurance, you know that like every November, is open season. And during open season, you have the ability, like if you're doing it through an employer, you have the ability to look at all of the different programs that your job is affiliated with. And you can kind of go through, you can see who is good for your health insurance, for dental, for vision, all these different things, right? And that happens every November. And we all know every November it's more and more and more, right? So, like, if health insurance is already expensive now for most Americans, then what do you think it's going to be when these hospitals are not getting paid? And, these doctors are overloaded because they have all these uninsured people. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a great experience. I'll just say that. So, this is definitely a change. There's some other things in the bill. There's a lot of different like news articles about it. So if you do want to read through it, I do recommend it because again, there's something in here that will probably impact you in some way because we all have to pay taxes. I know there's tariffs happening right now, so that's supposed to kind of like lower our tax responsibility, but if they're making major cuts like that, I'm like, I don't know. But I did want to talk about it because, again, like I said, there's something in here that will probably impact you, whether you have family who are immigrants or whether you're starting a business. We all need health insurance and all those things. So I definitely recommend that you look it up for yourself and just kind of understand because, again, we are trying to get rich. We're trying to understand opportunity. So, there's good and bad in everything, so just look and see if there are ways for you to kind of capitalize despite all these different things that are going on. So, as always, what is one boring thing that you can do today to start fueling your rich life? Again, I'm Joy Hicks, your host. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe.